On the Breakfast Club, trying to make me look like trying to make me seem like a sucker for love type of dude, and ain't nothing like that.
Fredro Starr. I got one on Baby Mo's. Right, so I land in Cali. I see him in the club. You know, he a little loud. Yo, son, what up, baby? Yo, he that nigga. Yo, shorty. Yo, stuff, son. You got that? That's you. Yo, do you? Nah, son, I'm saying that's all you, baby.
Fredro Starr thought he'd seen every type of hip-hop chaos imaginable until the day he crossed paths with DMX. What started as a simple tour setup turned into a quiet but powerful clash over style, respect, and dominance. You could feel the tension creeping in, but DMX didn't explode like people expected. He kept it cool, too cool, carrying his real-life battles behind that intense stare that said everything without a single word. Their link-up traced all the way back to the hard grind of the mid-90 seconds, when rap was raw, and every bar was a test of who had the most presence. Onyx was already a name that demanded discipline. Fredro used to say, you couldn't just walk into an Onyx session. You had to be thorough. No faking, no fronting, just pure energy and skill. Then one day, DMX walked in, and nobody knew what to expect.
We on stage, right? And we doing Party Up and we killing it, you know what I'm saying? DMX accidentally snuffs me. That's some real shit. I was like, wow, this nigga's knuckles is hard as a motherfucker.
DMX accidentally.
He accidentally snuffed me.
How?
Is he just
going
No,
out?
look.
Like,
1, 2, now. He hit me out. Oh, shit. I was like, God.
But once he started spitting, the temperature in the room dropped like the air itself knew a storm had just stepped in. Fred never forgot that moment. DMX had that same gritty hunger. Onyx was built on the same edge, the same wild power that felt half human, half animal. Sticky Fingers even laughed later, saying DMX could have been the 5th Onyx member. It wasn't flattery, it was fact. He fit their energy too perfectly. But when two alphas move alike, it doesn't build comfort, it builds competition. By the time 1998 rolled around and they linked for Shut 'Em Down, both camps came ready to prove who ruled the streets. Onyx were the veterans, the war-torn soldiers with years of grind behind them, while DMX was the new powerhouse, raw and fearless, charging at everything in his path. Inside the studio, there wasn't much talking, just beats, smoke, side eyes, and silence filled with tension. Fred said the vibe felt less like a friendly collab and more like a heavyweight showdown for respect. And when that record finally dropped, it was nuclear. Every verse hit like a punch, every ad-lib sounded like a growl, and that energy carried straight into the survival of the illest tour. The fans could feel it. This wasn't just music anymore. It was a battle of legacies colliding in real time.
And like, you know, it's going front. Oh, son, it's nothing. I mean, yo, hey, baby, son, you know, she ain't nothing.
Meanwhile, he fall in love with you.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
The vibe between them was tight, a wild mix of respect, intensity, and pure unpredictability. Fredro used to laugh and say, when you were around X, you never knew what was going to happen. And he meant it. Being around DMX was like standing next to a live wire. His energy could light up a room or burn it down in seconds. DMX was dangerous, man, but not because people were afraid of him. Nobody feared X, they just stayed on point, because his energy could switch the whole mood with one look, one growl, or one unexpected move. But behind all that fire, barking, and bravado, Fred and DMX shared a real bond. They understood each other in a way only two street soldiers could. Both came from struggle, both moved with instinct, not strategy survivors who trusted their gut more than any plan. They found peace in competition, pushing each other like brothers in a never-ending battle to prove who had the strongest heart. Life on tour turned that energy into a lifestyle.
What really fucked me up was after he went, this nigga pulled a razor blade out from under his tongue.
Oh.
I've been black my whole life. I'm not that black. The gift that you have to be able to put a razor blade in your mouth, talk, move your mouth, your tongue, and you.
In hotel lobbies, backstage, even on sidewalks, they'd start dropping down for push-ups out of nowhere, laughing, talking trash, daring each other to go harder. One minute they were cracking jokes, the next they were flexing, both too proud to back down. It wasn't fake unity, it was real energy, respect earned through raw, unfiltered brotherhood that didn't need words to be understood. Even after the tour wrapped, that feeling didn't just fade away. It stayed floating around them like smoke after a long night of chaos. Fred and X didn't need to talk every day. They had that kind of bond you carry for life, the one built through shared grind, sweat, and adrenaline. Whenever they hit the stage for Shut 'Em Down, the crowd could feel it in the air, thick, heavy energy like something explosive was always seconds away from happening. Fans would lose it because that wasn't just a performance, it was two powerhouses feeding off each other's fire. Both Onyx and DMX lived by the same old-school code: loyalty, respect, and always standing tall for your crew. X made sure Onyx got love everywhere he went, no matter what the industry tried to twist. But when you've got men built from pride and dominance, that same passion that bonds them can turn sharp real quick. One wrong move, one slick comment, and that brotherhood could turn into rivalry before anyone saw it coming. People tried to trace their fallout to a diss track or a radio moment, but they were way off. The real tension between DMX and Fredro Starr didn't start in public. It started years earlier, behind closed doors, long before anyone heard a single rumor. Almost a decade before the 2012 situation blew up online, something quiet had already cracked the trust between two men who once called each other brothers.
Show, me and him at Big Pun in Brooklyn. And after the show, we stopped at the gas station. Meanwhile, the whole crowd was just going, stop, shut him down, open up, chop, ho. Like DMX was crazy.
It all went down around 2002, right when DMX was in his movie bag, Hollywood lights, big premieres, fast living, and constant chaos. Fredro was still one of his closest people in the industry at the time, a friend who stood by him even when things got rough. But one regular night out turned into the beginning of their fallout. Fred pulled up to a movie premiere with a woman he described later as just a shorty, nothing serious, just someone hanging with the crew. Before the night even kicked off, Fred gave X the friendly nod and told him, "That's you, son," which in street talk means, "She's cool, do your thing." It was respect, simple, friendly, no drama. But nothing around DMX ever stayed simple. Years later, X went on The Breakfast Club and retold that same story, but this time, he spun it like a wild comedy skit. He made it sound like Fredro had been calling and texting the woman all night, begging to know if she was still with X. Then X pushed it even further, adding that the woman got pregnant and even gained citizenship because of it. The crowd laughed, the hosts laughed, but Fred didn't. Fredro said straight up, "Everybody laughing, everybody thinks it's a joke. But when my name came up, I didn't take it as a joke." That moment hit him hard.
What was it like being around DMX?
DMX was dangerous, man.
Straight up like that. Whoever don't like it, bring it, nigga. Bring it. I don't. Bring it. Bring it.
It wasn't about the story, it was about who said it. This wasn't a random rumor from a stranger. It came from someone he once broke bread with, someone he respected like family. To really understand why that moment cut so deep, you gotta look at DMX's history. X had this pattern: he'd take private moments, twist them, and throw them out into the world like raw entertainment. It wasn't always to hurt people. Sometimes it was just his way of coping, turning pain into performance. But this time, it landed wrong, and what was once brotherhood suddenly felt like betrayal, broadcast live on the radio. A few years before that infamous interview, DMX had already shown how unpredictable he could be when personal situations went public. Back in 2004, he got caught up in a paternity battle with Monique Wayne, a situation that could have stayed private. But instead of handling it quietly, X ran straight to the media and flipped the whole thing into a public circus. He made bold, even disrespectful comments about her looks, trying to turn the story into entertainment instead of damage control. It was reckless, and it backfired hard. When Monique took him to court and won a defamation case, it cost him more than $1 million by 2012. That same impulsive nature never really left him. X was the kind of man who spoke straight from emotion, no filter, no hesitation, no second thoughts. So when he hit The Breakfast Club and turned that old story about Fred into a comedy moment, it wasn't calculated, it was instinct. To X, it was just another wild story to make people laugh. But to Fredro, it was reopening a wound that had never even been public before. Fred had kept quiet about that night for years, never used it for clicks, never brought it up for attention. He respected the past and moved on. So hearing his name tossed around like a punchline felt like a real betrayal. It wasn't just about the story, it was about principle. But underneath all that, there was another layer: artistic tension. For years, Fredro and Sticky Fingaz had playfully hinted that DMX's growls, aggression, and high-energy delivery sounded a lot like the gritty, hardcore style that Onyx had introduced years earlier. Sticky even stirred things up online, asking fans directly, was DMX a copycat or the big dog? It sounded like friendly banter, but in hip-hop, that's not light talk. In this culture, questioning someone's originality is one of the deepest cuts you can make. Authenticity isn't just image, it's currency. It's what an artist's entire legacy stands on. And for DMX, nothing about his art was an act. That voice, that pain, that fire, it came straight from his soul. So when people even hinted that he might have borrowed his style from someone else, it didn't hit like a joke, it hit like disrespect. So when the Breakfast Club story started circulating at the same time, those copycat conversations were floating around online, everything exploded. Fredro felt that interview made him look weak, like he'd been disrespected in front of the whole world. Meanwhile, DMX felt like Onyx was coming for his authenticity, his truth. Two men who had once mirrored each other's fire suddenly found themselves facing off from opposite sides, each convinced the other had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Fredro's response came calm but sharp enough to cut through all the noise. He didn't explode or rant, he just made his point clear and cold. He tried to make me look like a sucker for love type of dude. That's not me. Fred didn't deny what happened that night. He said it was casual, nothing deep, but what really hit him was the disrespect, because in street culture, there's a code. You don't play with another man's name or pride. And when that line gets crossed, it's not about clout, it's about principle. Fred took it to the mic, the only way a real MC knows how. He dropped a freestyle. But this wasn't for hype or headlines. It was a clear message to X that he wasn't joking. His tone said it all. He was standing his ground, not begging for attention. Outsiders took it as a full-blown beef, but Fred himself said it wasn't about hate. It was strictly about respect. DMX, on the other hand, didn't play the same game. Instead of firing back with bars or interviews, he moved in a totally unexpected direction. Out of nowhere, he went straight to TMZ, the last place anyone thought a street legend like X would respond. When reporters asked him about Fredro's freestyle and all the tension buzzing online, X didn't break a sweat. He cracked that wild grin, looked dead into the camera, and dropped a quick height joke just enough to brush the whole thing off like it didn't matter at all. That single clip flipped the whole situation upside down. What had been heavy tension turned into comedy overnight, but underneath the laughs, there was a message, and it was cold. DMX was saying loud and clear, "You're not on my level." That grin wasn't humor, it was hierarchy. And just when people thought he was done, X added another hit that made headlines everywhere. He looked at the camera and said, "Sitcom Moesha gangster, stick to being a reality gangster." Those were his exact words captured live, no edits, no hesitation. The crowd laughed, the internet went crazy, and everyone instantly knew what he meant. It wasn't just a diss, it was a reminder of how the culture saw Fredro. Even though Fred had a solid acting career, films like Clockers, Sunset Park, and even key roles in big TV shows, most people still recognized him first from Moesha, and DMX knew that. He flipped that clean TV image into a razor-sharp insult, turning Fred's artistic success into a punchline. Suddenly, every tough bar Fred dropped sounded less like a threat and more like a performance. The sting wasn't in the joke, it was in the truth behind it. And in hip-hop, truth cuts deeper than any lyric ever could. Commentators caught it immediately. One radio host even said, "That nickname might just stick." And it did. The culture moved fast, and before long, Moesha Gangster became the phrase people couldn't stop repeating. It was the kind of label no street rapper ever wants, but once it sticks, there's no shaking it off. The same streets that once saw Onyx as unstoppable, loud, raw, and untouchable suddenly started seeing Fredro in a different light. After DMX's public jabs, the image shifted. To many, Fred wasn't the hardcore figure he'd always been. He looked more like an actor leaning into the tough image he helped create. DMX didn't need to shout threats or flex muscle, he killed the tension with humor. It was a different kind of power play, a mental move only X could pull off. He didn't scare people, he made them feel small. That was his gift and his weapon, pure confidence, cold timing, and the ability to twist a serious moment into something that instantly humbled the room. What made it sting even more was that everyone knew X wasn't pretending. His energy was real. He came from neighborhoods where pressure wasn't a performance, it was a lifestyle. DMX grew up surrounded by real consequences, real codes, and real people who didn't talk about survival, they lived it. That's what gave him that calm, unshakable presence. He didn't need to prove his authenticity, it walked in the room with him. Around that same time, the online drama with Fredro was peaking. X was facing actual danger in real life. Court documents later revealed tension brewing between him and another New York giant, Fat Joe. Allegedly, there had been a heated disagreement in Miami, and Joe's crew was reportedly ready to confront X over it. But things never got physical because DMX decided to stay in that night, a quiet move that probably saved the situation from exploding into something major. Moments like that weren't rare for DMX, they were part of his everyday life. Behind the music, behind the interviews, there was always real pressure bubbling around him. Trouble seemed to follow X like a shadow he could never shake, smoke that never cleared, no matter how far he went. Even years later, Fat Joe shared another wild story that proved how deep the chaos around X could get. He said that while they were overseas in Angola, he and DMX ended up under the control of a powerful figure, someone so feared that even local staff refused to make eye contact. Imagine that DMX, already dealing with non-stop battles at home, suddenly caught in a real-life hostage-type situation halfway across the world. This wasn't a movie scene or an exaggerated rap tale, it was real. DMX was living through levels of danger most people only hear about in rumors. And yet, he stayed solid, no panic, no fear, just the same quiet fire he carried since day one. For X, danger wasn't entertainment, it was the background noise of his life. He didn't chase drama, it found him. And that's what made his calm so legendary, because when chaos hit, he didn't flinch, he belonged there. So when Fredro started going online, dropping emotional verses and rapping about tension, pressure, and real-life pain, DMX didn't even blink. He didn't diss him back, didn't rant, didn't even look bothered. Because compared to what X had actually lived through, those bars sounded small, too small. That's exactly why he brushed the whole thing off with humor, cracking the sitcom gangster line and keeping it moving. One punchline and the internet went crazy. Fans split right down the middle. Some said Fredro brought back that gritty Onyx energy, the wild, raw spirit that made the 90 seconds feel dangerous again. But others said DMX shut it all down with one simple joke that hit harder than any freestyle. Early blogs and comment sections couldn't get enough. They ran the clips nonstop, and before long, Fredro wasn't being talked about as the aggressive, intimidating MC anymore. He was being memed. People were cracking jokes everywhere. The same streets that once saw him as the face of hardcore were now laughing at punchlines instead of bars. Fred tried to keep it cool in interviews, staying composed and choosing his words carefully, but you could see the frustration creeping through. And once the internet turns you into a punchline, climbing back from that is tough. The culture moves fast, and in this case, it moved against him. Even major magazines like XXL and The Source picked up the story. Most of their write-ups were short, but they all sent the same message. DMX wasn't beefing, he was brushing it off. One journalist summed it up perfectly, writing, "Fredro is dissing for clout. DMX is surviving court cases." That line hit the core of the situation. Fred's anger was living online, through freestyles, interviews, and comment threads, while DMX was out here trying to survive real storms. Behind the jokes and headlines, X was dealing with court dates, recovery clinics, and street situations that could have gone left at any second. For him, rap beef wasn't war, it was background noise. When you've stared down life or death situations, legal heat, and demons that follow you everywhere, a few internet shots don't even register. That's why his silence hit so hard it wasn't weakness, and it wasn't ego. DMX wasn't ignoring Fredro to be petty, he just didn't have time for someone acting out the kind of pain he was actually living through every single day. The gap between their realities was massive, and fans started noticing that difference. Eventually, the noise started to die down, and people began to understand what was really happening. Fredro was venting through his art, trying to fight a battle in public while DMX was fighting one in private just to stay afloat. That contrast changed the whole perspective. Even the rest of Onyx could feel it. Sticky Fingers stepped in, trying to calm everything down. Both he and Fred later called DMX family, saying he was intense but never fake. Sticky even shared old memories from the early Def Jam days, how they rode the same tour buses, shared hotel rooms, and lived through the same madness together. At the end of the day, that reminder brought it all back, full circle behind the noise, the jokes, and the headlines. This wasn't about hate. It was about two powerful men who came from the same kind of pain, just walking different roads to survive it. Same grind, same code, same hunger. That's what made the connection between Onyx and DMX feel real like family. They came from the same struggle, the same rough corners of hip-hop where nothing was promised and everything had to be earned. But when that public tension hit, all that brotherhood got tested. Fredro found himself caught in a tough spot. In public, he felt like he couldn't back down. He'd already said too much on camera, already made his stance known, so pride forced him to stand on it. But even as he doubled down, you could feel his tone start to cool with time. The heat faded away, but the pride stayed. It wasn't hate, it was principle. Fred didn't despise DMX, he just didn't want disrespect hanging on his name for the world to laugh at. Later, he broke it down clearly. It wasn't beef, it was just something I had to address as a grown man. That statement said it all. By January 2014, about a year and a half after everything first exploded, Fred finally let it go. He didn't want to carry that energy anymore. But DMX, he never spoke on it again, not in a verse, not in an interview, not even by accident. His silence became the final word. That quiet dismissal hit harder than any diss track could. DMX didn't need to respond. His silence made it feel like the whole situation never even happened. That's the kind of power X had. He could end a storm without saying a single word, and that silence, in its own way, added another layer to his legend. When Onyx looked back years later, they didn't speak bitterly, they spoke with respect. Fred himself summed it up perfectly. DMX was dangerous in an unpredictable way. You never knew what he'd do next. That mystery, that unpredictability, was part of what made him special. Fred tried to fight him with bars and energy, but X answered by doing the opposite. He walked away. And somehow, that move made him look even stronger. In a world where everyone talks, X's silence became his loudest move. By the time the smoke cleared, both men were in different spaces. Fred refocused on new music, new projects, and keeping Onyx's legacy alive. Meanwhile, DMX was dealing with battles much deeper than any rap beef addiction, court issues, financial pressure, and trying to find peace in a world that never stopped testing him. His life wasn't a performance, it was pure survival. Looking back now, the truth hits hard. DMX wasn't trying to clown Fredro. He wasn't mocking him out of malice. He was showing the difference between a man acting like he lived danger and a man who actually survived it every single day. Fred lived between stages and bright lights, sets, studios, cameras, while DMX was facing real demons in real time. One man was performing his power, and the other was just living it. That contrast defined the moment and, in a strange way, brought everything full circle, the actor and the warrior. two sides of the same struggle, walking completely different paths but shaped by the same fire. That same week, the world was laughing at the sitcom gangster joke. DMX was living through real storms. While social media laughed, he was quietly paying off heavy debts, facing court judgments, and battling an addiction that had haunted him since he was first exposed to substances at a young age. That's the difference. When people called him a reality gangster, it wasn't an insult, it was the truth. X was living the pain most rappers only rhyme about. Fans saw the contrast clear as day. So when Fredro later came out saying, "There was never beef," the people believed it. They could feel that both men had already said what they needed to say, but only one of them carried the silence that spoke louder than words. DMX didn't need a final statement. His life was the statement. Every scar, every loss, every prayer told his story better than any interview ever could. Years later, when Fred started sitting down for long interviews, his whole tone changed. The frustration was gone. The edge had softened. What replaced it was gratitude. He spoke with peace, even smiling while sharing memories of the old days. One that stood out came from the late 90 seconds, when Onyx found out DMX was shooting the Rough Riders anthem video nearby. They pulled up to the set, no invite, no call, just real hip-hop energy, and instead of acting territorial, DMX welcomed them instantly. Fred laughed, remembering it. X tossed them shirts, said, "Come on, let's go." And next thing you know, Onyx was on top of the truck, wilding out, becoming part of one of hip-hop's most iconic videos ever. That moment wasn't business or competition, it was love. Pure, unfiltered hip-hop love, the kind that comes from respect, not rivalry. DMX gave back that energy effortlessly because he was built from that same authenticity that Onyx carried since day one. People forget that side of X, the warmth behind all the chaos. Fred and DMX used to chill often, no cameras, no hype, just two strong personalities connected through that same wild, untamed spirit. Looking back, it all makes sense now. DMX wasn't just a rapper, he was a force. Sticky Fingers said it best. When X walked in, the air changed, it got thicker, heavier, alive. That wasn't exaggeration, that was presence. He didn't roll around with security, entourages, or flashy cars. Fred said X would show up to a video shoot solo, just him and his dog. Stay all day, humble, calm, locked in. No ego, no performance, just realness. And that said more about his character than any lyric ever could. When DMX passed in April 2021, at just 50 years old, the world stopped. The industry felt it, the streets felt it, even his rivals felt it deep. His loss wasn't just another headline, it was a moment of silence that hit everyone who ever connected to his truth. Fredro posted a short but powerful tribute, R.I.P. DMX. No tough talk, no ego, just love. He called X special, saying his pain and faith were different from anyone else's, and he meant it. Now, when Fred speaks on DMX, it's all respect. No jokes, no old tension, just truth. Because by the end, all that back and forth, all that noise, it didn't matter. What lasted was legacy. Two warriors from the same era, molded by pain, driven by pride, finally seen for what they truly were, brothers in struggle, equals in spirit. DMX didn't just make music, he lived it, breathed it, and paid for it with everything he had. And that's why his story will forever hit deep. If this story moved you, drop your thoughts below. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep the energy alive and to honor the legends who lived what they spoke. See you on the next one.